In this video, I am going to be guiding you through Chapter 2.3, Recruitment, Selection and Training of Employees. Here are the syllabus statements. So we're going to look at the recruitment and selection methods. Firstly, a job analysis needs to be conducted, and this is to study the tasks and activities to be carried out by the new employee. This is to identify and record the tasks and responsibilities of the new job. This will help out if they need to recruit or task the duties to someone else, and also the reason may be because they are expanding or replacing an employee. A job description provides a clear idea of what the job involves. The purpose of a job description is that it avoids applicants who cannot do the job to apply for the job. A job description includes a title, location, summary of the job, who you report to, the working conditions, the job duties, and the hazards. A job specification is a document that outlines the requirements, qualifications, expertise, skill, and characteristics required by the employee. This clearly identifies the qualities required by the business. These include qualifications, expertise, specialist training, skills, and personality. Internal and external recruitment. So, internal recruitment is when a vacancy is filled by an existing employee of the business. The advantages of this is that it saves the business a lot of time and money. Moreover, that the employee will be a better fit because they already know the business organization and the culture. They have a deep understanding of the business operations already, and this motivates other colleagues in order to get a promotion. However, the disadvantages of internal recruitment is that there are no new skills and experience that comes into the business. Their colleagues might be jealous that another person got the promotion, or there might not be any suitable candidates for the new job. External recruitment is when the vacancy is filled by a non-existing employee of the business. The advantages of external recruitment is that the new employee will be able to bring new skills or ideas. There will be a much wider pool of candidates to choose from, and the new candidate will be able to bring a fresh perspective to the business operations. The disadvantages, however, is that they will have no knowledge of the current operations and the business culture. It will be more resource heavy in money and time. So moving on to the main stages in recruitment and selection. Firstly, the business needs to advertise the vacancy. So this is for external recruitment. Advertising is required to get candidates. This raises the awareness, increasing the number of potential applicants for the job. Places could be job centers, specialist magazines, recruitment agency, websites, word of mouth, local newspaper, television, and radio. Next, we have selection, and this is when the business selects the best candidate for the job. In order to select the best candidate, they need to write a letter of application, their CV or resume, then they get shortlisted, then they get interviewed, and lastly, a selection of tasks and an aptitude test will be taken place. Moving on to the benefits and limitations of part-time employees and full-time employees. The benefits to part-time employees is that their hours are more flexible. This means that it is easier to ask them to work more during busy times or to work less during times when are less busy. It is easier to extend business hours by working the weekends, for instance. And it is less expensive to pay part-time employees compared to full-time workers. The disadvantages, however, is that they receive less training, which results in lower quality product or service. They will be less committed to the business. It will cost time and money to train the part-time employees, and the employees may leave the job for a full-time position somewhere else. For full-time employment, the advantages is that the business receives a consistent level of service and work. It is likely to be more committed to the business. It will be easier to communicate with them, There will be an internal pool of candidates for future promotion. And lastly, fewer workers are needed. The disadvantages of full-time employment is that there will be high overhead costs as labor is fixed regardless of output. There will be less flexibility to scale down, and there will be higher labor costs. So next we look at the importance of training. Here are the reasons of why training is important. Training is required to introduce a new process, to improve efficiency, increase motivation, reduce mistakes, fewer accidents, employee flexibility, less supervision required, less numbers of employees needed, and fewer customers' complaints. And if a business is able to receive all of these benefits, they will be operating very efficiently. Induction training is given to a new employee, explaining its activities, customs, and procedures, introducing them to their fellow workers. The advantages of this is that this allows the employee to be familiar with the business operations. This is also a legal requirement in some jurisdictions, and they are less likely to make mistakes. The disadvantages of this is that wages are still paid when they are training. Delays when employees start their job, and this will increase costs for the business. On-the-job training is watching a more experienced worker doing the job. The advantages of this is that the business will still be producing things whilst they are training somebody on the side. This costs less than off-the-job training, and training is to meet the specific needs of the business. The disadvantages of on-the-job training is that the trainer will lose some production time because they need to explain the concepts and the techniques to the new employee. The trainer will transfer the bad habits to the trainee, and the trainer is less productive when training other employees. Off-the-job training, however, is when they are trained away from the workplace, usually by specialist trainers. The advantages of off-the-job training is that employees are exposed to skills that might not be available to the business. They get access to the most up-to-date skills from skilled trainers, and workers can focus on their job 100% when they are working during the day. The disadvantages of off-the-job training is that the training might not be tailored to the individual and for the business, and moreover, it is very expensive to do off-the-job training. So what are the difference between dismissal and redundancy? Dismissal is when the business tells a worker to leave because their behavior was unsatisfactory. This could be lateness, or stealing from the business, or unable to do the job to a satisfactory standard. Redundancy is when an employee is no longer required, so they lose their job through no fault of their own. Some factors are that technology has taken over the role of the employee. There will be a fall in demand for goods, meaning the requirement for the employee is no longer needed. The factory or the shop is closed, or they have relocated the business or factory. Downsizing is when a business reduces the number of employees of a workforce. This may be due to technology or an economic crisis. A factory or shop might need to close. They may need to relocate or reduce costs, or they might just have an excessive workforce. These are all the reasons for any business to downsize. So which workers will need to be made redundant? Well, it totally depends on how important their job is, how well the employee is performing, or how experienced they are at the job, how well skilled they are, and how much they get paid, and how long have they been working for the firm for, and whether they have an excellent attitude to work or not. All of these above reasons should be factored in before making someone redundant. So moving on to legal controls over employment. The contract of employment is a legally binding document, and this sets out the terms of the relationship between the employee and the employer. This usually includes the name of the employer, job title, date of employment, hours worked, rate of pay, when the payment will be made, and the holiday entitlement. This will be legally binding by law. The impacts of the contract is that it sets clear expectations of the employer and the employee. It allows security of employment for the employee. The employee is allowed to seek legally binding compensation if the employer does not meet the conditions. If the employee does not meet the conditions, they will be then dismissed. Employees are protected against unfair dismissal. This is when an employer ends a worker's contract of employment for a reason that is not covered by the contract. This could be discrimination at the workplace, or to reduce the worker numbers but not pay redundancy compensation. This is illegal. The impacts of the unfair dismissal is that the employer will need to keep accurate records of the employee performance. Employees will have an employment security knowing that they will not get dismissed the following day, allowing employees to take employers to tribunal. A contract of employment gives protection against discrimination. So if the employer makes a decision that is based on unfair reasons such as race, religion, gender, age, or disability, they cannot do this under the law. The impacts of the protection against discrimination is that all employees are treated equally. Equal qualifications gives equal opportunity. Employers will need to carefully word their advert for the job, and recruiting and promoting staff will just be on merit alone. Health and safety at work is a legal requirement for employers, as they are required to protect employees from dangerous machinery and provide safety clothing and equipment. This is because some employees may be working with dangerous machinery, so they have to have a provision of safety equipment and clothing. They need to maintain reasonable temperatures whilst working and provide hygienic conditions and washing facilities for their employees. The employers cannot insist in working longer shifts, such as double and triple shifts, and they have to give them adequate breaks throughout the day. The impacts of health and safety for a business is that this will cost a bit more for the employer. The time required to train workers on the health and safety equipment, workers will feel safer and more motivated. This will then reduce the accident rates at work. Moving on to the solved examination questions. Please be reminded that I have a Paper 1 and Paper 2 examination technique, tips and tricks in the description below. Outline 2 benefits to WTB of having part-time employees. Benefit 1. Reduces labor costs for its cereals. Benefit 2. Flexibility, as it's easier to ask the 600 production part-time employees to work more hours. Explain 2 stages of the recruitment and selection process that businesses use. Which stage do you think is more important? Justify your answer. The job description is the most important as it provides a clear idea of what the job involves. The job specification is the most important as it provides information such as skills and qualifications required for the job. I think that job description is the most important because the business will not know if they found a candidate suitable or not. Job specification is not the most important as it depends on the type of job offered, such as a low-skilled labor, which skills are easily picked up and applied. Do you think that it is better for a tertiary sector business to use full-time employees rather than part-time employees? Justify your answer. Part-time employees have more flexible hours, as they can work more hours when they need to. Full-time employees are the best, as they are more committed. and they are less likely to leave, saving recruitment costs. Part-time workers are not the best as they have received less training, which may lead to low quality and inconsistent service. Full-time employees are the best for a tertiary sector as they can provide consistent levels of service to its customers as they are more familiar with the business operations and objective. Do you think that on-the-job training is a better method of training for a manufacturing business to use than off-the-job training? Justify your answer. On-the-job training is best because production still takes place at work. Therefore, they will not lose productivity and output. Off-the-job training is best because they have access to the most up-to-date knowledge and skills. Therefore, they can benefit from these new techniques, increasing the quality and quantity of output. Off-the-job training is not the best as the cost to this is very high, which will add to the total cost, hindering profit margins. I think that on-the-job training is the best for a manufacturing business as the training is tailored to the specific needs of the business, and manufacturing products requires consistency in the quality of their products produced. Identify 4 legal controls over employment: health and safety, minimum wage, sick pay, and equal opportunities. I hope that helped. I hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.